Welcome back to the Aro Benaiah Show. Today I'm joined by Kevin Diana, entrepreneur, leadership coach, and business builder who scaled a collision repair shop from $7,000 to $3 million before founding Upward Path Coaching. Kevin's story is one of resilience, ownership, and turning challenge into systems that create leadership at every level. Let's dive into his journey and lesson he has learned along the way. Once again, it's good having you here, Kevin.
It is my pleasure.
Kevin, what was it like growing up for you?
So I grew up in a little state called Vermont. It was out in the country. It was rural, mostly trees and cows and farms. I uh, I spent a lot of time out in the country with my grandmother. She taught me basic carpentry. My grandfather taught me a little bit about cars, and it was nice. It was pretty simple.
How did this experience shape your work ethic and your leadership when it comes to looking back now?
It had a tremendous impact on it. My grandmother was somebody who gave and gave and gave. We would help the church yard sale for weeks on end. We would help people in the community. We'd bring water and food to people. And she worked tirelessly. When she wasn't working, she was cleaning houses. When she wasn't cleaning houses, we were building her painting studio out in the woods. For fun, me and my brother would chop down trees, build tree forts, and just live outside. It was fantastic. So as I grew up, helping people has been a center of what I do. It's at the forefront of the way I think and the way I ran my businesses.
Wow, wow, amazing. And at age 13, you started mowing lawns as your first business. What lessons from that time still guide you today?
I started my first business at the age of 13. It was a yard work business. I mowed lawns, I raked, I'd shovel people's roofs. And what I learned from that was the value of starting a conversation with somebody and offering a service. You can't get a sale unless you ask for the sale. I had an entire street that at one point was allowing me to mow their lawns. At 13 years old in 1995, I was making $250 a week take home. That's as much as some adults were making at that point in time. I had the nicest bike of all of my friends, and I always had money in my pocket.
Wow, that was pretty amazing. In the fact that at that young age, you already making a whole lot, couple of money and you're living a pretty life. And yeah, I think that would be a lovely way to actually say it. Entrepreneurship is something you always return back to being owing to those early experience. And you have been open about struggles with alcohol in your early age. How did this challenge shape the man and the leader you become?
Well, it had a lot to do with who I've become at this point in my life. I spent almost a decade of my life, probably from the age of 18 to the age of 25, consumed with alcohol. It ended up leading me to drop out of college. It lost me relationships, and it caused me a lot of struggle in my family. Um, my father, my biological father, struggled with alcohol. And as a child, I saw it. I was mildly abused by him when he was intoxicated. And you would have thought deep down I would have known better. But for some reason, I fell into the same path. I thought that it would never be me. I wouldn't be like that. And after my third DUI, I finally realized that I was the problem. I was the one who was causing all my anguish, and that if I didn't change, things would never change for me. So I sobered up, I quit drinking, and to my surprise, life got so much better. Things really started to fall in place. I was already working for the collision center at this point in time, and I was really fortunate that my boss kept me on. I had to go spend 10 days in jail, and through that time, he supported me. And I still have a very close relationship with him at this point in time. We talk almost once a month and we're very close friends. I'm so thankful for him to have him in my life and for him to give me the chance that he gave me. What I
Wow.
learned, the biggest lesson I took away is that our mistakes don't define who we are. We get to have a comeback story.
Hmm.
And just because we're losing at halftime doesn't mean we have to lose the game.
Thank you so much for that. It's really inspiring the fact that you went through that route and at one point you're able to pick yourself out. And yeah, which is very, very demanding. And you're able to see the fact that you were the problem. And sometimes I think the biggest problem sometimes is not realizing we had the problem, and the fact that you came to realization make it pretty easy for you to, which I know that there's a whole lot of underground work you get to do before you actually more like came out. And I'm so happy that you're sharing these stories out. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Kevin.
absolutely. Happy to tell it.
So working in restaurants taught you about speed, service, and consistencies. What did that environment teach you about leadership?
We value speed and consistency because it offers the customer a fantastic product. We have to deliver in a timely manner. We have to give a consistent product. In the collision industry, this is extremely important. We have to create a fast turnaround. People are without their vehicles. This is their mode of transportation. They get to work. A lot of people make their living with their vehicle. And if they don't have that, then it's hard for them to make money. Now, we lived in the northern states, and a lot of people were service workers. They drove their trucks, they plowed with their trucks, they towed trailers. So every day that that vehicle was down was money out of their pocket. We had to create consistent ways of doing things. So we made systems. Systems allowed us to follow a step by step process to come out with a standardized outcome, and we end up with the same product every single time. We use these systems in the front office to communicate with customers day in and day out. And we use these systems in the back end of the shop to do the repair work, the paint work, and to finish the product. We also did it when we do a quality control check so that we had a checklist of everything we were going to check on the vehicle before it went home to ensure that we completed the job thoroughly.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for that. When you enter collision repair industry, what's surprising the most about the business?
I think what really surprised me the most, because I didn't work in the collision industry beforehand. I was actually um, opening restaurants and bars in Dallas, Texas, prior to coming back to Vermont. I had worked in the trades a bit, but not in the auto industry. What shocked me the most was the relationship between the consumers, the insurance companies, and the repair shop. There is a drastic disconnect with the way that people think their insurance works. Just because you have insurance does not mean that your vehicle repairs are covered in full or that the insurer is going to pay for everything needed to be done to restore the vehicle to what we consider pre-loss condition. The biggest thing is that body shops have no legal authority to negotiate on people's behalf. We can tell consumers what it's going to cost to repair their vehicles, but we have zero authority to negotiate that with the insurance company. That's a direct relationship between the consumer and the insurance company. We live in this age of convenience where people want things instantaneously and they want things done for them. And the insurance companies understand this. They create apps where you can take a couple photos of your vehicle after the accident happens, and they'll assess the damage from afar, and they'll give you an appraisal. They'll try to settle with you based off a couple photos that you take. I think this was the the most surprising thing to me. What I found as a close second was the the mindset of the people in the collision industry. They have done things the same way for 50 years. Their father taught them how to do it. They do it the same way their father taught them. But our vehicles are not what they were 10 years ago, and they're certainly not what they were in the 70s. The vehicles we have today drive themselves. They're full of electronics and sensors. There's more wiring in a Mercedes Benz than in 10 of our houses put together, and more sensors. So the way in which we have to approach the repair work has to change. I'm very proud to say that I installed the first assembly line style production shop in the state of Vermont. This allowed me to departmentalize repairs, to create specific training for individuals where they didn't have to know the entire process from start to finish. Because let's face it, not one single technician can fix every single vehicle anymore. It's just not safe and proper. And to think that we can repair vehicles the same way we did 30 years ago is asinine, honestly. And we need to take safety um, to heart. We have to put that first. We're putting people and their kids back in these vehicles, and they have to be safe. It has to be done right. And the auto body industry doesn't decide what's right. The manufacturer of the vehicle decides what's right. They decide what the procedures to repair their vehicles on. Sure, we can still straighten some sheet metal. We can still, fix some cracks and bumpers and do different stuff. But when it comes to should that panel be fixed, is it going to absorb energy in the same way it did in the first collision? Those are important questions that we need to ask as repairers, and not just can we fix it. So
Yeah, wow.
all too often I see collision centers stuck in doing things the way they did them in 1995. And I always ask them, are these the cars of 1995? And just because we can, should we? Those are very important distinctions.
Thank you, Kevin. And the fact that you make reference of how insurance view things and the real world, owing to the changes that have come into automobile from 50 years ago and now, the changes is drastic, and the demand and the cost is way, way higher compared to in the 50s. You have scaled collision shop from $700,000 to 3 million. What is the biggest mindset shift that made the growth possible?
It was breaking the old business style. So the way it worked in body shops for the past 50, 80 years is you have one technician that takes apart the cars, he fixes the cars, he used to paint the cars, and then put them back together. When I first started at Clark's Collision Center, we had four people that fixed cars and painted cars. They each had to take turns in the paint booth and whose day it was to paint. It took me about a year and a half to get the owner on board with having one designated painter. He soon saw that that helped production. It also created a very consistent paint product because one person was doing it. You had one person style. It allowed him to become an extremely proficient and effective painter as well. I'd put him up against any other painter in the state of Vermont, hands down, no problem. The next thing was to break up this idea that one person had to take apart and put together the vehicle and that he didn't want to put together anybody else's work. So by creating a standardized process to disassemble the vehicle and house the hardware and organize the parts, we were able to do it the same for numerous people. Then if somebody was out sick, somebody else could put the car together. By breaking things down and finally becoming an assembly line style production shop, we were able to streamline operations. We could get more work in and out the door at the same amount of resources. So I built up the clientele. We sent the owner out on sales calls. We opened a division to work on semi trucks, trailers, campers, and construction equipment. This gave us additional revenue streams that allowed us to expand and do the same type of work on a slightly different vehicle. So if you had a mobile home or an RV and it got into an accident, we could fix it. We could paint it. We could put the decals back on. We could throw some seam sealer on it, and that was right in our wheelhouse. This, in combination with training myself on the industry to become an industry expert and training myself on leadership, really allowed me to help develop the people. I couldn't get anybody's buy in to begin with because I didn't have the leadership skills. There was a lid on the level of leadership I had. And just because I had a title of shop manager did not mean that they were going to follow me.
Yeah.
It took me a couple years to gain everybody's trust, to be able to communicate effectively with them. And once I did this, once I learned that it wasn't about me and what I needed, that I was there to serve them, that I was there to make sure they had what they needed to succeed, not they were there to help me succeed, that changed everything for me. It changed everything for our shop. And in the end, when we'd gone from 5 employees to 15 employees, it really showed. People were loyal. They were happy to
Yeah.
be there. They were happy to do any work that they needed to accomplish the job. We had a common goal, and they were rewarded for that goal, and they were paid their value. It wasn't based on how much they could produce. It was based off their worth as people and what they offered to the business. This is something that's a little bit different than a lot of repair shops who pay their techs flat rate and tell their techs if they hurry up and do more work, then they'll get paid more. I never asked that. I said,
Wow.
here's your pay. If if you do go over our production goals, I'm going to give you guys half the profit out of that. And we did so. And you know what? People were thrilled to make an extra $7,000 a year.
Wow. What is different between managing workers and actually building leaders in a shop or small business?
So when when I started to build the leaders who started to build the rest of the team, it was really towards the end. I hadn't had the leadership level to be able to build other leaders until about 5 or 6 years ago. And when I started developing my leadership team and I started developing the leadership skills in the team members I had, it allowed them to work with the younger people. It allowed them to work with each other and connect on a deeper level and really work towards that common goal that we talked about. The point of leadership is to help and lift those up around you. It's not an I, me, my kind of thing. It's a them, they. How do we help them? I'm a big um, supporter of servant leadership and what I call transformative leadership. Transformative leadership helps people move up. If we had people that had big dreams and their aspirations were to leave the business one day and do their own thing or build something on their own, that was okay. You can't hold them back as a servant leader, as a transformative leader. You have to help your people continue to move forward and move up in life. And you'll find that what people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
This is really, really amazing. Is the fact that despite it's an Octo shop, the way you view leadership and building a culture is very, very amazing, which speak volume to you actually training leaders, and the leaders later help on in actually training others, and they keep on and on and on, which make the business easier and influence become more easier. What are some common leadership mistakes you see in blue collar business today?
Well, it's not necessarily they try to be managers. They still want to manage the people. They direct with tasks. They give people a list of things that they need to accomplish. And the one thing I like to tell these people is to go into work today Try something different. Instead of telling your employees what you need them to do for you, ask them what they need from you to complete what they need to do. You'll find that your employees know the job. You hired them for a reason. Let them do what they do and they can do it well. Give them the resources to do it well. Be a tool for them to use to accomplish something great. Many
Wow.
managers and many business owners and leaders are afraid to give control up to the employees. They have all sorts of excuses. One of the most common ones I see is that somebody can't do it as well as I do. And I love to challenge that because in the business world we like to say 80% of what you can do is good enough. So you can teach somebody to do this. You can give somebody a system to follow and the training to support them so that they can come up with that standardized product, so they can have the correct language when they talk to the consumer. When your sales guy approaches the house to sell them on the roof, when your sales guy approaches them about the landscaping, the tile work, whatever it is, we can build systems for it. That's never a problem. We have this fantastic thing these days called a cell phone, and you can take a video of yourself doing the task and you can talk through the task step by step. We call this the camcorder method. You can create a library of these videos for training for your employees so that they can reference back to them. You should have a playbook in every business where it's your standard operating procedures, commonly known as your SOPs, and employees can reference those. And you should have an SOP for everything in the business, absolutely everything. Because as the owner, as an owner of a shop with 13 people on site, if somebody had a question for me and they only needed 5 minutes of my time, that 12 employees would take up every single hour of the day, all the time. And I would never be able to get something accomplished just for a simple 5 minute question once an hour. So you have to make sure that the employees are empowered. And by thinking that they can't do the job well enough or that they're not responsible enough or they can't do it to the standard that I need them to do it to is really limiting your business. It is putting a cap on your business. You have to empower the employees. You have to tell them that I got your back. You can make a mistake. It's okay. We're going to get through it. I always loved it. We were in the collision industry. We fixed broken vehicles. We fixed accidents for a living. If not a place where you can be okay to make a mistake with a business based off mistakes that people make, then where? So you tell your people you support them. You tell them it's okay when they make a mistake. They have to learn from it, and that's a teachable moment. But we move through it. We go on. People don't remember your failures, they remember your successes.
It's really amazing. Thanks for breaking up that. Many trade persons just want to do the work without thinking about leadership. How can they start developing leadership habits early?
Well, the first thing they're going to want to start doing is they're going to start wanting to learn business skills. There's a book called E-Myth, and this outlines the technician's journey to ownership really well. Um, so we see this a lot in blue collar trades, right? Somebody's really good at tile work or they're really good at carpentry. So they open their own business. And for a while, it works okay. They're doing all the work themselves, they're bidding the jobs, their time's not really, they're working 60 hours a week probably. But then things start to grow and then they need help. Now they're trying to bid on jobs. They're trying to run two different job sites. They don't have an accountant. They don't have a bookkeeper. Their wife's doing the books. They're stretching themselves too thin, and they're doing things that they don't like to do. So, by gaining business skills and learning how to operate a business, then they're going to alleviate a lot of their headaches. And it's okay. If they love to do the work, then that's fine. Let somebody else run the company and manage things. Let somebody else worry about the finances. We have bookkeepers for this reason. Leadership is something that they will develop over time. This takes practice. Chris Robinson from the Maxwell Group likes to say, learn a little, do a little. And this is a great motto when it comes to leadership because you can't learn it all overnight. You can't just read a dozen books and all of a sudden be a great leader. It takes practice, it takes real world experience and being out there and making the mistakes and learning. It takes learning how to connect with people. um, I love this John Maxwell book. It's called Everyone Communicates, but Few
Yeah,
Connect.
you connect, yeah.
Yeah, you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
So um, it talks about some basic principles on how we connect with people and the fundamental things that are involved. It takes energy to connect with people. We have to put ourselves out there and we have to show effort. If you stand there with your arms crossed and you're low energy and monotone, nobody's going to connect with that. Nobody. But if you've got good energy and you're interesting and you you really you really do connect that way, it's so much easier. So leaders read. Leaders are people who always learn. This means that leaders are people who like personal growth. We're never okay with being okay. We want to be exceptional. Leaders always push the limits of who they are and who everybody around them can be.
Talk about the transition from running your own business to selling it and then moving into coaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, building the business was fantastic. I loved the people, I loved my team. It was great. But the time came where my family and I decided we needed to make a transition. Um, my children were running low on opportunities where we were at, and we wanted to give them a better life. So I was approached by a larger company who wanted to buy my turnkey operation. Fortunately, I had a phenomenal staff that helped me build this operation that would run day in and day out without me. I could take off for 2 weeks and things would be just fine. And that was a great feeling. So, over the course of about 10 months, me and this company worked on the details of the deal. They did their due diligence, and there's a lot of stuff you need to provide when you're going to sell a business. You need to have good financial records. You need to have access to those records, and they need to be clear. It needs to tell the story of the business. You also need to be able to provide them with accurate employee records. Who's worked there? For how long? What are the pays? What are the bonus systems you're running? And then you're going to need to be able to list all the assets of the company. In my case, it was the welders, it was the paint system, it was all the supplies, all the equipment, right down to the office chairs. So it took quite a bit of time to compile all the information and then allow the company to do their due diligence, their market research, the environmental study, everything that goes along with selling a business.
Yeah.
There was a
Thank
couple
you very
things
much.
that, yeah,
Okay.
no problem. A couple things I wish I had known were um, to have some people in your corner You hire a lawyer and you might hire a business broker, but they're working for you. You've hired them to complete a specific task. Um, and there's companies out there. Um, there's one that I find, it's called Pilot Your Wealth, Freedom Consultants. It's a fantastic company. They surround you with a whole team of experts to go out there and support you through the sale. They help you with your evaluation. If you're actually ready to exit your company, or if you need to work on some stuff before you get your sale. It would have been nice to know that I had a few people in my corner. As we transitioned from the business, it took me a couple months to really decide what I wanted to do with my life. I was at a point where I wasn't really sure. I had been Kevin of Clark's Collision Center for 13 years. And I really somewhat identified as that. And I felt a little lost not being Kevin of Clark's Collision Center. So after taking a couple months off and spending some time with the family, it was time for me to get back to work. I'm not a man who sits around the house very well. So I had been tossing around some ideas of what I wanted to do. And what I really decided is I wanted to help people. I have this skill set of business and leadership, culture development, system development that will help people streamline their operations, that will reduce the headache. We always say in the collision industry that the manager's got to be the best firefighter in town because he is constantly solving problems. And you know what? For the past few years, I didn't have to be a firefighter. We built the systems that got ahead of the problems and we saw them coming. And you can do this in any business. All you have to do is reverse engineer the product that you want and label your common issues. We find the problems and we solve the root cause of the problems. In the collision industry, it was finding damage underneath the external parts of the car. So it was easy to see what's going on the outside, but it's really hard to tell what's going on the inside. So it used to be that we'd take apart part of the vehicle, we'd send a report to the insurance company, to the customer, and then we'd get started on repairs, and then we'd find some more, and we'd send another report, and so on and so forth, all the way till we're done the vehicle. A lot of times you had 3 to 5 different reports that were sent out. So this was a problem. This caused delays, it caused headaches. As vehicles became vastly more complex, we needed a better system. So the industry had come up with what we call repair planning or blueprinting, X-ray repair planning. Whichever term you wanted to call it, it was all the same. You disassemble the vehicle until nothing was left to be taken apart. Every clip, every bracket, everything was taken apart. You front load the process. You did all the research on the repairs from the manufacturer, the calibration requirements, the reprogramming requirements, any alignments. Everything was detailed in the beginning. And then we didn't work on the vehicles until the parts arrived. This allowed us to go right to the end of the repair and everything was known. We knew everything that was going to happen. Now, this is no different than when somebody builds a house. They draw a blueprint of what's needed. They can tell you down to 1 2x4 how much material you're going to need to complete that job. They can tell you exactly how many light switches, exactly how many feet of wiring, the exact amount of PEX tubing. And so why can't you do this in every other business? You can. You can get ahead of things and you can solve these solutions for yourself. So, this is what I wanted to teach people. I find that I love to coach. I love to help people get unstuck. I find that most people actually know the solution for their problem and don't need to be told. They just need somebody to help them open up their mind and allow them to choose the solution that they need to choose. Either that or they need somebody to hold them accountable to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Wow. Thank you, Kevin. What advice do you give to young trade persons who want to earn trust and responsibility quickly?
That's a great question. I would tell them to master their skill, to learn absolutely everything they can about what they want to be good at and put it in practice. Try to become world class at what you do and do it with a great attitude. Attitude is something that we get to choose. And if you choose to have a great attitude and add value to other people and add value to your company, people are going to notice. It's worked for me for years. I've become a skilled person at every business I've been at, and I've added value. I don't ask for more. I ask how I can help more. How can I contribute more? And this has always led to me rising into management, me rising into a position of leadership, whether it being as a bartender or a head server at restaurants or bars, or in the collision business, or in intramural sports back in college. It it's about the way in which you approach things. If you master the skill set that you need to be successful in that company, and I don't care if it's plumbing, electrical work, if it's
Hmm.
excavation, if you know how to do everything you need to do your job well in that business, then you're going to succeed. I learned this in football. I was a quarterback years ago, and my junior summer, I injured my shoulder playing basketball down at the courts with the guys. And I couldn't throw the ball as well as I used to be able to. My shoulder hurt. So my senior year, I played every position on the field except center. I didn't care where I played, what my job duty was. I knew the playbook inside and out. And I took pride on being able to help the team in whatever way they needed. Defense, offense, special teams, being on the line, being a running back, being a receiver. It didn't matter because we had one common goal, and that was to win the game. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about the stats. It wasn't about any one individual. And if you take this attitude and you apply it to your company that you work for, you are going to see results within 6 months. I guarantee it. You stop thinking about yourself and how you can take care of numero uno, and you start worrying about how you can contribute better to your team. Everybody's going to notice. They're going to notice, and it's going to help.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So if you could leave my audience, blue collar entrepreneurs listening right now, if you could leave them with one word of advice, what would it be?
Create an intentional growth plan. This is something that I have learned over the past few years, and I've really taken to heart as of late. Being intentional about growing yourself as a person, a human being, a community member, a business person, a skilled tradesman will pay dividends throughout your entire life. Being able to learn how to expand your capacity as a person, as a human being, will only ever benefit you. You will find more growth in business through personal development than almost any other skill. If you can learn to to find a way to be intentional, to whether it's through journaling or using chat gpt to keep you accountable, for reading, for exercise, for communicating with people, for reaching out to other people, for, you know, giving kind words to another human being, to doing something unexpected for somebody every day, for finding a way to expand yourself and grow intentionally, you'll find that this compounds over time.
Mm.
And after a few years, you are going to make so much headway in so many more directions than you actually thought possible. It'll surprise you. I guarantee it.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for that particular. I think it's very, very key. So how can my audience connect with you? How can they do business with you? And what platform best fits for this more? And
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Kevin Deanna. That is D apostrophe A N N A. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Kevin Dana 12. Again, that's at KevinDanna 12. And then you can find me on Facebook as well, Kevin Deanna. And I want to let your audience know, if they find me on Instagram and message me systems, I will give them a framework to build out whatever system they want. This framework will work to build systems for putting in toilets. It'll work for building systems for navigating a $5 million business through a business deal. It will build whatever system you want. Just find me on Instagram, message me systems, and I'm happy to give it to your audience.
yeah, thank you so much. Definitely, the link you just make reference on your various handle is going to be added to the show notes, and my audience can easily reach out to you through that. And yeah, thank you so much. Kevin, thank you for sharing your journey with us. From mowing lawn at 13, to scaling multi-million dollars business, to now coaching leaders across industries. Your story showed that leadership is built on responsibility, not title, and that culture and profits can grow together. For those who want more from Kevin, practical advice and leadership insight, follow him on Instagram at Kevin Diana 12. Until next time, keep leading with your heart and keep building with purpose. Once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show, Kevin.
Thank you. It's an honor, and I appreciate you.